Hello everyone, and welcome back to another book review. Today I'm going to be reviewing The Art of the Pen, and this is by, hold on, gotta get to it, Hendrix and Thea Vignau-Wilberg. So The Art of the Pen is a little book on calligraphy and a little bit of medieval illumination, or maybe Renaissance illumination, and I thought it was really pretty and really short, so I picked it up and gave it a read. So the premise of this book follows a particular work called, oh great, now I've forgotten it, Model Book of Calligraphy, which is written by Georg Bocskay, and this was a Croatian individual or a Croatian calligrapher, I should add his profession, who wanted to write a book demonstrating his skill and his ability to write in a variety of scripts, both historical and contemporary, as well as some ones that I guess he even made up, and different foreign scripts as well. This work that he pulled together mainly focused on his calligraphy. It wasn't designed to be read like a book, but was a sampler of the way of his skills and his abilities and what he had learned. After he passed away, then a court illustrator named Joris Hoefnagel took up the work, but not as a calligrapher. He was set the task of doing the illustrations for this book that the calligrapher had written. So this was a two-part work, and each page in the book contains the calligraphy, and as you can see, the different types of calligraphy are very, very obvious on this page, and then these beautiful illustrations down below. What I think is really interesting in this book is not only the juxtaposition of the calligraphy versus the illustration, which is very interesting. It's two arts, and both of the people were kind of competing with each other. The calligrapher wanted to really show off his skill with the written word, and the court illustrator wanted to show off the preeminence of the illustration and the illumination. So they're both kind of fighting for each other to kind of show off how good they are, how talented they are in their skills. And as you can see, both are very, very talented when you look at the pages. So they're a treat to look at. It's a joy. It's only about 60 pages, but it took me quite a bit of time to get through it because I was looking at each page so deeply and so intently, because there was so much to look at, and you could tell there was skill on both the part of the calligrapher and the actual illustrator, the person who was doing the drawings. However, it's interesting because this comes at a time right when when I say our, I mean our like human history, our relationship with the written word was changing, because the wow, what is it called? The printing press was introduced to Europe. So all of a sudden, writing was no longer just the domain of preserving knowledge and carefully copying it into a new book for the preservation of this information, but rather information can now be easily disseminated by means of the printing press. And this opens up a whole new world of writing, or whole new world of the written word, which is kind of a misnomer, because all of a sudden it's no longer written. So the role of calligraphers and scribes was all of a sudden going to become a lot less important, or changed in a way. The people who were doing that work before were going to be still doing the same work, recording information in a written or a text format that was put on paper so people could learn this information, but the way they were going to be doing it wasn't going to be through the handwriting, but was rather going to be through the printing press. And I could argue there's still people today who their whole life revolves around what we call the written word, but they're not doing a whole lot of physical writing. In fact, when was the last time you or I actually sat down and wrote like a book's worth of material of information out? Unless we're in school, probably not recently. So our relationship with writing has definitely changed, and it's interesting that he was showing off the skill and this preeminence in his field for something that was going to be so rapidly changing just shortly after his lifetime, or the changes were happening during his lifetime. So that was very, very interesting to see. The second kind of goes along with the first, and that is that medieval, or this was early Renaissance, illumination was no longer going to be something that was going on. We don't get hand illustrated books very often unless we're doing something that's like, we're buying a book that's artsy or has specifically had that done. Most of the time when we read books, the books we read are very, like, the pictures will be put right in the text. No one's doing the hand illustrations. This is also kind of a dying art, or a dying form of the way that people were interacting with books that was soon no longer going to be a thing, but this was kind of the last great, he's considered, according to this book, like the last great illuminator who had devoted his life to this work, and also you can see is very, very good at it. The topics that he picks tend to be fruit, flowers, and these little small creatures. I really loved his little insects. And I think it's just interesting to see everything that he puts in here. He's just really creative and clever and really, really pretty. I love the work. And like I said, it's a very, very short book, only like 60 or so pages, but it took me quite a bit of time to get through it because it was so, so interesting. And yeah, their worlds were about to change. We're kind of at the cusp of switching from Middle Ages, this medieval era, to the Renaissance. So a lot of things are going to be changing all at once. And this just seems to be a moment of reflection of kind of the beauty and the art that existed during the medieval times, but also knowing that this kind of work was no longer really going to have a place in the world going forward, or at least it's not going to be the primary way that written work exists in the world. So they had a good point. Let me see if I can find it very, very quickly. Yes, the model book of calligraphy stands at an art historical crossroad. It constitutes one of the last important monuments in the grand tradition of medieval European manuscript illumination. So this is kind of like a culmination of all this beautiful work that has been done throughout the Middle Ages, and we are now moving into a different time where there's still going to be a lot of beauty. The Renaissance is known for the art that came out of that time, but I think it's important to also have this is like a very interesting, like they said, it's a crossroad. I feel like that paragraph summed it up very perfectly. Like this is kind of a very interesting point where we're changing from one art form to another, but also seeing some masters of this previous art form at their finest. So I really enjoyed this book. I'd probably give it a 4-star. The illustration was beautiful. If you can purchase it, I would really recommend it, just because I would love to go back and continue to look at all these pictures and the calligraphy. It's just really beautiful and it's really interesting. Also, how masterful and skillful the calligrapher is can be shown by just how he's able to switch through all these different types of text. And I just think it's really interesting and really cool, and I loved it. So I'd probably give it a 4-star, and I highly recommend you read. As mentioned before, it's short. It's mostly pictures for your enjoyment of the book. So if you're expecting like a detailed analysis of calligraphy, then this is probably not the book for you, but I do think it's really enjoyable and I do highly recommend. And yeah, I'm very glad that I read it. If you've read this book or have any books similar to it that you would recommend, please let me know. I'd love to hear about it. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.